I'm so honored to be standing here today in Luxembourg, surrounded by these images that I have photographed over the past 26 years. I don't know where the time has gone, but it seems like a sort of map of my life. More importantly, it's a map of the lives of all of the incredible, brave women who have let me into their lives during the most private, vulnerable moments, and also the most resilient moments. Sometimes I wonder how and why women let me in with a camera. When I was giving birth, for example, the thought of a woman coming in asking me to photograph their delivery was astonishing. But women have been so proud and so incredibly brave to let me document their lives. When I started taking pictures at the young age of 12 years old, I never imagined I would be a war photographer. I was raised by hairdressers, actually, in the United States, in a household full of love and creativity, and war never entered the conversation. I don't think we ever had a political discussion when I was young. I did realize early on that using my camera gave me an excuse to meet people and to talk to strangers and to walk into people's lives around the world. It gave me sort of a passport to learn about culture and about tradition. The first time I went to Afghanistan, I was 26 years old, and I was just curious about life for women under the Taliban. I remember before I left, I realized I wanted to do this trip, but I didn't have any money. And I was a young photographer, so no publication would send me. So I called my sister and I said, "Hey Lee, can I borrow $3,000 to go to Afghanistan?" And she said, "Sure." And of course, no one knew where Afghanistan was because this was before September 11th. And then I called my mother and I said, "Mom, I'm going to Afghanistan tomorrow." And she goes, "Okay, honey, have fun." But I was curious about women. I wanted to understand what Afghan women felt about living under the oppression of the Taliban. I didn't know if it was sort of all of the articles in newspapers, if those articles really were just a depiction of our perception of what their lives must be like, or what they really felt as women. So the only way to know was to go there and ask them and to talk to them. I was one of very few women who had worked under the Taliban 26 years ago, and I realized that in conflict, the experience of women were not always documented. They often remained in the shadows, because most of the photographers and journalists covering war were men. And I made it my mission to change that. Because I'm a woman, I've been invited into the kitchens in Kabul, the maternity wards of Sierra Leone, the private shelters of displaced in Darfur. I have sat with women in their grief and quiet moments of defiance and watched women deliver babies and give life while sometimes losing their own lives. Women have shown me the strength and resilience as they recounted stories of sexual violence. They have survived in the Democratic Republic of Congo to Sudan to Ukraine. I've patrolled alongside women fighters in the jungles of Colombia to those fighting ISIS in northern Syria. I walked the Darien Gap, 100 miles of jungle between Panama and Colombia, where women were carrying children on their backs while climbing on all fours up very difficult terrain in the thick of the jungle. And in Ukraine, I witnessed a mother and her 2 children get killed in front of me while Putin was claiming he was not targeting civilians. It was a civilian evacuation route. Throughout my career, I've always believed that a photograph from war or humanitarian crises, human rights abuses and war crimes can be used to educate, can dispel misconceptions, can affect change and ultimately policy. The best photojournalism has the power to give a visceral sense of emotion, of the reality on the ground, and to stir someone into action. In its essence, true photojournalism conveys truth, no matter how much AI-generated images now infiltrate our social media, no matter how much people around the world like to dismiss inconvenient truths as fake news. Journalists continue to be on the ground and provide fundamental testimony. As you walk through this retrospective, I ask you to look at these images not with pity for the women, but with respect, These women are not just survivors, they're proud and brave, and they have shared their stories with me in order to reach you, to hopefully give us perspective and evoke empathy and change. Thank you.